Okay, we have the patch 15.17 patch notes here. There are going to be nerfs to Gwen, Yi, Rumble, Singed, buffs to Irelia, Kassadin, Kayn, Kog'Maw, Misfortune, Morgana, Nyla, Senna, Set, Vayne, and they're adjusting Teemo and Yunara, as well as system changes to items like Axiomark, Horizon Focus, and Profane Hydra. Looks like it's a rather light patch, so that's kind of interesting. Can see that also there's a different background here, different style, because it's going to be split 3. They'll probably talk about this in the beginning of the notes, but just a reminder for everyone, there's one ranked reset this whole year at the start of the year. So there's no ranked reset for this season 3 or split 3, whatever they're calling it now. It's just thematic splits, as we've been saying. So there's no ranked reset. Although your border and icon and skin chroma that you got for split 2, your ranked rewards, since they're giving those out still every split, those were locked in at the end of the last patch. So let's see here. Yeah, they're calling it season 3. I'm not going to go on the whole rant about this again, but I don't understand how it can be season 15 and season 3 at the same time. They have a word to divide seasons up, and it's called a split. I don't understand why they stopped using it. They want solo queue to mirror competitive. I don't understand why they wouldn't just call this a split instead of season 3. So apparently we're back in season 3 at the same time as we're in season 15. Makes no sense to me. Let's see. So alongside with this update, we have a brand new battle pass, blah, blah, blah. Yep. Missions. Season 3 ranked begins. The start time will be 12 noon local server time today. Similar to the Season 1 to Season 2 transition, players' ranked LP progression won't be reset, but the victorious mission to get the victorious skin will be reset. So you'll need like another 15 ranked games won to qualify for this like Season 3 or Split 3 victorious skin. Ranked queue will be disabled during the ranked season downtime, which will be approximately 12 hours. This feels really weird to me too, to be honest, and doesn't make a lot of sense. So I guess they're saying, like normally on a patch day, the game will go down, and it's just 12 hours, so it's not a big deal. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but like the game will go down for a little bit, right? It'll go down between like, I'm not going to remember correctly, but like 3 a.m. to like 7 a.m. Pacific time or whatever. And then, it's back up whenever 7 a.m. Pacific time, whatever. The thing that's really annoying is they're doing this weird thing where they're allowing for this 12 hours, like we're at the start of a split with a reset. The reason why they start at noon is because they want people to not have to wake up at 7 in the morning to start their race to challenger or whatever. That's the whole reason why people wanted them to start the season at noon. So it's only a few hours. It's not that big of a deal. But why disable ranked for no reason on a minor patch for like 5 hours in the morning and then start at noon when you could just have it enabled because there weren't any major changes to the game and because there's no ranked reset, no race that needs to start at noon or anything like that. So the whole adjustment from ranked used to just start when the patch dropped and went live at like 7 in the morning to noon was because of the race element to it. They didn't want people to have to wake up at 7 in the morning. It seemed like a very minor change they could do to just have the ranked season start at noon. But you don't need to do that every split if there's not a ranked reset. Just there's a lot of things where it seems like they don't even understand why they have the things in place that they have in place, and the people who are like making these decisions are like unaware of what's even going on, I guess. Transfers disabled before season end for reward distribution. That's normally a thing. Otacon is now armed. You'll notice with this patch, Otacon now has a weapon, totally normal weapon. Mechanically, we're not making any changes. It's just a visual change. Okay. Xin Zhao visual update is coming live this patch. Similar to what we've done in the past with some visual updates, Xin Zhao's Commando and Imperial skins, I'm not going to talk about their skins. Additionally, we've unvaulted his skins, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so Xin Zhao VGU. Okay, they dropped some Xin Zhao lore. Doombots is back for this patch. Game info tracking improvements. League's been around for a while now, and with that has come a thriving app ecosystem. These provide a lot of value to folks who download them by helping players find builds and runes, showing them performance information, scouting your team or opponents, or in-game features like jungle timers, summoner spell tracking, and more. Over time, we've seen your feedback around how some of these features don't feel fair when only some players have access to them, and we agree. The competitive integrity of League is critically important to us, and we want to preserve it, and we've heard how useful some of these features have been to many of you. In order to get the best of both worlds, we're going to be updating our third-party app policy, restricting certain features from being allowed, while also building other features into the game so that all players have fair access to them. Minimap jungle timers. Back in the day, League didn't have any objective timers or global announcements. The only way you'd know someone took Dragon is if you saw it happen or stumbled on an empty pit. Along the way, we've added timers on the tab screen to encourage coordination and fights around these objectives, which has led to some of League's most exciting moments. Fast forward to today, minimap timers are one of the most commonly used third-party app features, so we've decided to take a hard look at providing that info. In order to keep the default minimap clean and reasonable for all players, we've got some options for you. Well, two, basic and advanced. The basic view provides full timers for epic camps, but uses the current hourglass icons for other camps, displayed at 30 and 10 seconds before respawn. However, while pressing tab, you will see timers for all camps, giving the best of both worlds to those who want a minimal default state, but more info with a button press. The advanced view simply displays timers for all camps. You can find this option in the interface section of the settings menu. To ensure the minimap stays readable and the most actionable camps stand out, timers get visually louder the closer the objective is to spawning. It is our hope that with this change, you'll spend more headspace checking lanes, pathing with intent, and planning ahead for the next major objective instead of tracking camp respawns. It should level the playing field and create more coordination around objectives while also making the jungle role a little bit less daunting. Added jungle timers to the minimap. Basic view displays epic camp timers. All other camps visible while pressing tab. Advanced view displays all camp timers at all times, available in the interface section of settings. Death recap and summoner spell tracking. Earlier this year, we worked with third-party app developers to remove information about enemy ultimate cooldowns because we believe that there's a lot of skill in tracking key abilities. It can be the difference between knowing your gank will 100% succeed versus your opponent making a sick, unexpected 1v2 flash outplay, and that uncertainty keeps the game interesting. We're going to take a similar approach here and restrict cooldown tracking tools from being provided. With that in mind, we're going to make some improvements to communicating ults and spells that were recently used to aid in team coordination and planning. When Diana pops everything to kill you, you'll see those spells displayed in Death Recap, and you can ping them right there without opening the scoreboard. Even non-damaging spells like Flash and Teleport, which we've never done before, will now be displayed. In chat, your ping will show a definitive Diana used Flash, and if you ping it 3 times while looking in the mirror, maybe your jungler will pay her a visit before she backs. Even better if you're playing your top and you pan your camera down to watch some cinema bot lane, you can ping a spell from the scoreboard within 15 seconds of it being used and get the same result Jinx used Flash. Additionally, while working on this, we moved Death Recap out of the way and also added contribution to the fight, including damage dealt, crowd control applied, and how much gold you earned. Moved Death Recap to the side of the screen and added a show/hide functionality. All summoner and ultimate spells used against you will now be displayed in the Death Recap, even non-damaging spells like Flash. Pinging a spell from Death Recap will now display descriptive text in chat. If a friendly unit sees a spell used and you ping it from the scoreboard within 15 seconds, the same descriptive text will display. Added info about your fight contribution, damage dealt, gold earned to death recap. So a lot of changes there. Obviously, a couple of big things. Adding jungle timers is something that I think is really important to the game. It really changes your decision making if you know whether a camp's going to be up or not. And even I think for a good player, you just opt to play with timers because it's kind of hard to keep track of all of them when they're just being taken at different times. And there's 12 different camps on the map. So the reality is that if you're playing jungle seriously at a high level, I feel like you play with timers on using a third-party app, and making that accessible to everyone is a no-brainer because first off, like, these apps are bloatware, they lower your FPS, they have a lot of other negative consequences to them as well that Riot didn't really get into. For that reason, I really don't like using third-party apps like that. But yeah, in general, when you have a game, I don't even play WoW, but I've heard that this has happened a lot with WoW. You have this situation where third-party app developers obviously have an incentive to constantly come up with new tools to give players extra helpful information while they're playing the game that can help them succeed and do better in the game. And eventually, when that becomes too much of a competitive advantage, Riot has to step in and say, you know what, if players are able to use this pretty easily through a third-party app, and a lot of people are opting to do that for that competitive advantage, it's more important to simplify the game or give that information easier, even though that degrades some of the skill in the game. It's better to do that than to allow people to have an advantage that other people don't know how to have access to, and to be able to provide that to people in the game. Jungle is also a role we've been talking about recently. Riot wants a lot more people to play. I'm not saying this is going to cause long-term players to switch to jungle, but like they said, I do think it legitimately makes jungle a little bit more interesting for newer players, because if you're playing jungle, it's going to be a little bit easier to manage. And if you're, even if you're starting out and playing the game a little bit, the timers all over the map might make you wonder, hey, what's going on over there? What's going on in the jungle? Whereas, to be honest, you might ignore the jungle a lot if you're a new player and you're just walking down a lane fighting. So I think that that's a good change as well, to incentivize people to play jungle, even though maybe that's not going to be such a big deal. It's just that it's so easy to do, right? That you can't imagine that for 15 years, they can, they're stressed for 15 years about what they can do to get more people to play jungle. And there are these very basic things, right, that they haven't made accessible to people who are trying to play jungle, or to get people to pay attention to the jungle. So I think it's obviously a good change. They kind of have to. It'll be interesting to see with the summoner spell timing, the details of how specifically this works. So from what I've seen and what I've read here, it sounds like you either have to see the summoner spell being used, or die, or your teammate sees the summoner spell used and you ping within a certain period of time. Because there's a lot of little situations that come up. For example, I can tell sometimes, even if I'm not panned to a lane, that their top lane, I'll be laning bot as a support and I'm watching the map and I see that their top laners flash without even panning top, just because of their movement on the map. I just saw them instantly blink on the map, right, in their portrait move. So I think, as far as I read this, that because my top laner probably saw that, if I pinged that flash, it would say that that person had used flash. So that's good, because there are situations where even if you're not looking at it, you would be able to tell that someone has flashed and ping it. So that's nice that that's included, even if your teammate saw it but you didn't see it. But there is something good to limiting it to we saw it happen, because that encourages or rewards players for actually using their camera to see what's going on. Whereas you can't do that if you're not necessarily looking. The other thing is that, because I don't think it was entirely clear from what they said here, it sounds like when you pinged that someone had flashed, if you saw that they used flash, it's giving you this definitive answer that says, Jinx has used flash. Whereas if you were to just ping Jinx flash and you hadn't seen her use flash, you'd just be pinging like the opposite, like maybe her flash is up, or like be careful, she has flash, or or whatever. And so there's a couple of things that are really nice about that. One, because it's definitive, you don't have to try to remember if somebody used something or not. You just know for sure 100%. And number two, not only is it definitive like that, but you also can ping flash in two different ways now, right? You can ping like, be careful, this person has flash. You can also ping, don't worry, this person doesn't have flash. And so that's really nice. One thing I'm a little bit disappointed about is, and maybe it's fine, right? It does maintain the skill of doing it. But when you ping, and what I was kind of hoping for when I heard that they were adding summoner spell timers into the game, and maybe this is a problem, is I believe the summoner spell timers for third-party apps will be like automatic, and it's going to tell you when they come up. And this doesn't tell you when they come up, as far as I understand. So it guarantees that you know that they used it, but so do the third-party apps. But it doesn't add the 5 minutes automatically for you. So for example, if you have timestamps on and you ping Jinx has used flash at 2 minutes or whatever, well, you know that Jinx flash is going to be up in 5 minutes at 7 minutes. So your job as a support player for a long time at a high level has been to type in chat ADF7, and then you copy paste, you control A, control C, control V, you copy paste that, and then you can add more to it by pasting your message back in, whatever, and then adding to it. So then let's say at 3 minutes their support flashes, you open up chat, you control V or ADF7, and then you type, sup F9, and then you copy that and you paste that, you spam that a couple of times, etc. So there's this process that support players know for timing these summoner spells, right? And the disadvantage to doing that is when you take the time to do that, you have to be really fast at typing it. You've got to, figure out some abbreviation system for summoner spells and for roles so that you're a little bit faster with it. It takes time, even if you're fast with it and you're, abbreviating and stuff like that. It takes time to, to type all that out in chat, that you're not spending like looking around the map and laning and stuff like that. And so when you can just click a button, or an app automatically starts keeping track when you see that an enemy has flashed, and you don't even have to type anything, you just know that their flash is coming up at the exact time that it's coming up to the second. Well, now you have a competitive advantage, because a lot of players who are timing summoner spells aren't going to time it to the second, because it takes a lot of extra mental energy to add the seconds to it as well. If they have summoner spells haste, as well, like Ionian Boots or Cosmic Insight, that can really mess with the timing. And a lot of players, it would take a very good player to account for those sorts of things when they're doing their timers. For a lot of players, even summoner spells that aren't like flash, do you know that cleanse is a 4-minute cooldown, that heal is a 4-minute cooldown, things like that. Exactly how long all these different cooldowns are, a lot of players could keep track of flash, but maybe aren't so good at keeping track of heal and cleanse and barrier and ghost and all this stuff. So there's a lot of skill and nuance to it. And I used to have a very different take on this, because I remember back when Dragon didn't give you any information about when it had been taken, and it was the support's job to figure out when Dragon had been taken and keep track of it. And you had to do the same thing. So, if you knew that they were on Dragon or likely to have taken it, then even if you hadn't checked it, like, you could keep track of the timer on Dragon, right? So you knew when it spawned next. So if, you guys got killed bot lane and their team walked towards the river like they were going to take Dragon, you assume that they took Dragon, even if you're not able to check it right away. Maybe that happens at like 7 minutes. Well, Dragon respawns in 5 minutes, so you're going to type, Dragon 13 and, drag 13 and then copy paste that. And so supports used to have this skill of having to keep track of barons, dragons, summoner spells, all this stuff. The issue is that, like with the dragon and the baron timers and stuff like that, third-party apps just made it automatic. And Riot had to respond by giving that information to people in the game. And the result was not a bad thing, right? Like supports can focus more on actually playing the game. The information being available, like they said, causes people to actually be able to go into fights with each other because they're all aware of when Dragon is actually up. And so it hasn't been a bad thing for the game at all in that way. Same thing here with the summoner spells. Like you can elevate the level of gameplay by giving people more information, allowing them to make better decisions and actually maybe have a better time playing the game because they're playing with better information and can play better. You're enabling people to have a better time to play around those things. So what I'm getting at here, though, is that the third-party apps, it'll be like you see somebody use Flash, and then it's automatically keeping track that the Flash is at 7 minutes. Whereas if you're a player, even with the new system, it's not really all that different. The only thing it helps you with is if you don't remember whether someone flashed or not, and you ping their Flash, it's going to tell you definitively whether they used it or not, but it's not going to automatically add the time for you. So I was kind of hoping that when you pinged Jinx has used Flash at 2 minutes, that it would say Jinx has used Flash, it's up at 5 minutes or like 5 minutes or something like that. Like put it in the chat, in the message, because that would be competitive with what the third-party apps are doing. So the process for support players at a high level is going to be the exact same because we're still having to type all this information out. And if you're using a third-party app, unless they've just banned it, which they did say that they're trying to ban some of this stuff, unless they've just banned third-party apps from being able to do that, you're still going to benefit more from a third-party app for tracking summoner spells. So I don't really understand how they missed the mark with that one. Champions, Gwen, armor, 36 to 33, attack speed growth 2.25 to 2.5%, or initial slow 60% to 30 to 60%, and subsequent slows 25% to 15 to 25%. Yeah, I agree with this. She's really, really strong in competitive right now. It's a little bit interesting because it's a mixed change. It's definitely, a small nerf, but I wonder how much this nerf is actually going to impact her. I have a hard time telling with a change like this whether this is going to be a really big impact or not. Because there's a lot of situations where like the slow on her ult really doesn't matter. She's actually getting more attack speed growth per level, and then she's lost 3 armor, which is like substantial, especially if you're playing jungle or something like that. You're gonna take more damage against camps, but it's not that big of a deal. Minus 3 armor is not that big of a deal, so hard to say. Obviously, probably a slight nerf. Irelia, W, Defiant Dance, 10 to 50 to 10 to 50, plus 40% AD, plus 40% AD, 40% AP to 50% AP. So they buffed the AP ratio on Irelia's W by 10%. And then they've upped the maximum damage on her AP ratio on her W by 30% from 120, from 120 AP to 150 AP percent. Don't know why AP Irelia is currently not viable or picked at all. I can't believe this is seriously the change. E Flawless Duet, cooldown 16 to 12, 16 to 10, and damage 70 to 230 to 70 to 230, 80% AP to 100% AP. So I guess you get a small buff on Irelia with your E cooldown as you're getting some points into it. This is such a weird change. This is like one of these, obviously this is another thing we have to talk about this patch because it's the start of a new split, right? New season, they're even calling it. Yet there aren't any major changes being made to the game, and the game has felt really stale for a long time. And I was really hoping to see some serious changes to the game. Even in the previous splits, right? They made some major changes to the game. Like, for example, they added Otacon in Split 1 for the Noxus theme, and they added Feats of Strength. Then in Split 2, while it wasn't a crazy change or anything, changed Otacon so that, the way that it worked was different. They removed the GA Otacon. They added the passive slow and heal to getting a takedown once you've got Otacon. They changed the way collecting all the flowers works after you take it. So they've made some significant changes to some major objectives and stuff to try to shake up the game at those times. They also, at the start of Split 2, reworked feats of strength so that it was actually worth building the boots and stuff like that. And they've made changes along the way to not just the boot gold cost for feats of strength, but also to how feats of strength worked, right? It went from first blood to the first 3 kills and things like that. So they made some changes over the years, mostly centered around the start of the season and then the start of Split 2. And so I kind of assumed that with the culmination of, the Noxus on Ionia thing, that there would be a major change to the game for Split 3. And I'm really disappointed that at a time when people are saying the game is boring, it needs to be shaken up, the changes that they're making are purely visual, right? Like, we're going back to the Green Summoner's Rift is something that I should mention on the new Split, and which I do look forward to returning to a Green Summoner's Rift, I'm not going to lie. And they're also going to be adding, this weapon to Otacon or whatever, but like, these things are not what people were looking for to shake up the game. So to get back to our Irelia change here, it's very similar to the Nautilus jungle change. It's like they said the game feels really stale, it's really balanced, and we only want to make major changes to the game at the start of a new split. So because we only want to make major changes to the game at the start of a new season, at the start of the year. So because we only want to make, these major changes at the start of the year, we're not going to do much right now. The other thing I can't help but notice is that we're in the middle of playoffs right now for the LTA. And I wonder if being in the middle of playoffs with Worlds coming up, because that just happens to be the timing of Split 3, Riot really has taken a stance because they've done both. They've radically shaken up the meta right before playoffs or Worlds, and they've left it alone. And Riot's opinion has been that they don't want to interfere with competitive heavily by making massive changes to the game that like favor one team or another right before a major event. And so it's no surprise to me, knowing what's going on with the competitive cycle, that maybe the reason why they're not making any changes right now, significant changes to the game, is because we're in the middle of playoffs. But then for the general public, and there's way less people watching competitive, especially in NA, than ever before, what happened to balancing the game around the general public and not caring as much about competitive? They obviously walk a line between both, and it's difficult to do both. You can't make everybody happy, but I thought that Riot's general stance was make the general player base happy, not solely do things for competitive. So it seems like not changing the game at what they're calling the start of season 3, right? Not changing the game in any significant way because we're in the middle of playoffs is either one, like, bad planning from Riot that the split doesn't line up with the competitive splits, or two, they're catering so hard to professional play that they're unwilling to make the necessary changes to the game that people are looking for at the start of a new season or split to come back to the game and be excited. So I'm kind of disappointed in that. And so, like with the Nautilus jungle change, this AP Irelia shenanigans is them saying, we can't make any real changes to the game, so we're going to try our best to make some random, just completely random nonsense viable, so that the game feels a little bit different because of the champions in the game, at least. Will AP Irelia be good because of these changes? I don't think so. But I don't know, it's been a while since we've seen it, so maybe it's good. Kassadin has been a bit stagnant and below where we'd like him to be with his resting win rate. His pick rate's declining. Damage, Kassadin's Q damage, 65 to 185 to 65 to 185, 60% AP ratio to 70%. So he's getting an extra 10% AP ratio on his Q. E force pulls 70 to 190 to 70 to 190, 65% to 70%. So he's getting an additional 5% on his E. Yeah, that's definitely going to help Kassadin out a little bit. It's not a ton of damage, but it's pretty decent buff, and I think fair considering where he's at right now. Kayn, Q and W mana cost decreased. Last thing I'll say about Kassadin too is the game is super accelerated right now. Like, you level and get gold and items so quickly compared to old League that I wonder if scaling champions like Kassadin that people have picked less and less and less and forgotten about. Now, I don't know, maybe the champion's just not good right now, but I think that there's a lot of hard scaling champions that people have forgotten about that are actually really, really good, because there's never been a better time in League to scale like quicker than ever before. And if you get behind, there's never been bigger comeback gold for objectives and for champion takedowns as there have been right now. So I'm a big believer that all of these changes that they've been making have been making scaling champions completely OP. And so I wouldn't be surprised if there's some scaling champions, and maybe Kassadin's one of them, maybe he's not, but there are probably some giga scaling champions out there that are really strong right now that people have just forgotten about or aren't playing very much. And so, that's interesting to see if this like placebo minor buff causes people to go and play a bunch of Kassadin and actually turns out he's fine. Kayn, Q, and W mana costs decreased, or even good. So Q mana cost on Kayn going from 50 to 40, and W Blades Reach going from 60 to 80 to 40 to 60 for the mana cost. So he's just getting his mana cost on his Q down by 10, and the mana cost on his W down by 20 at all ranks. That is crazy. There are a decent number of lane Kayn players out there, and we'd like to give them a fair shot at winning their games. To do that without buffing Kayn jungle, we're buffing mana cost to give him better access to wave clear and scrapping with his lane opponent. I'm not a fan. I think that Kayn jungle's good. I get that there might be some people playing Kayn in lane, but I don't think that like these mana changes are going to make lane Kayn good or popular or a thing. Again, it feels like a weird reach for Riot to get another off-meta pick into the game because the game feels stale, rather than actually changing the game. On top of that, obviously the mana costs do help lane more than they help jungle, but they also help jungle. I mean, you're not telling me that jungle Kayn never goes zoom. Not when he's clearing his camps. Jungle's a bit busted in that way, but for sure, like, there are times where you're fighting against a Kayn and he goes and you're just telling me that that's like much less likely to happen now. This is actually a slight buff, obviously, to Kayn jungle as well if he's in an extended fight. And I think Kayn jungle is fine right now. And so I don't, I'm not a big fan of a change like this at all. But, it's a minor buff, whatever. Kog'Maw, Q damage increased, W damage increased, R damage increased at higher ranks. Seasons ago, Kog'Maw was once a viable and common mid lane poke champion. I'm gonna crash out. I mean, I'm tired and stuff, right? So like, I'm not that, I can't go that hard right now, but every single change is just an attempt to spice up the game by making some random off-meta pick come back into the game. And it's so annoying because, like, I was reading this and I was thinking that they were going to talk about Kog'Maw AD carry, because Kog'Maw AD carry is one of the champions that I think is criminally underrated right now. I think Kog'Maw's been good for a while now, but people stopped playing him and who knows why. And he's actually pretty good. And I thought with some, buffs coming into Kog'Maw AD carry that get people to try the champion again, similar to Kassadin, I thought Kog'Maw would be, coming back strong into the meta. Instead, what I see is that we're trying to bring AP Kog'Maw mid back. And so we're buffing the AP ratio on his Q by 10%. from 80 to 90%. We're buffing the on-hit damage on his W, but only the AP ratio part of it. So it's still 3 to 6%, but now instead of 1% per 100 AP, it's 1.5% of target's maximum HP per 100 AP. So they buffed the AP ratio there. And then on his old living artillery, they buffed, let me guess, the AP ratio. It's going from 35% to 35% to 45%, scaling with points into it. Maximum damage is still doubled, so this is also going to be even more if you're getting the maximum damage out of it. It can be even more. So yeah, they're just buffing AP Kog'Maw. Master Yi. Base health is going from 669 to 655. Our fixes for Master Yi Q, applying Kraken and Terminus, were understandably buffs Yi. We're looking to reduce his built-in on-hit build potency now that the system works in his favor. So they're reducing his base health by quite a significant amount. 14. I guess it's not a huge deal. It kind of feels like a lot. Q Alpha Strike, on-hit damage modifier, 75% to 65%. Okay. I mean, if Yi was doing well, this just makes sense. But yeah, it's just a like decent nerf to Yi. It's like a slight nerf, like slightly bigger than a slight nerf, if that makes sense. Misfortune, base AD increased, base attack damage 53 to 55. I mean, this just, maybe it's more helpful than I think that it is. Certainly MF is a champion that benefits a lot from AD compared to other champions, but man, yeah, the 2 AD change, I don't know if that's going to change a whole lot. But yes, tiny buff to Misfortune. Morgana, W mana cost decreased at higher ranks, W damage increased at lower ranks. Mana cost 70 to 130 to 70 to 110. Damage per second 14 to 70 to 18 to 70. What confuses me, I guess, the most about this is, like, what are they trying to do with Morgana? Like, what is the direction? Because it seems to me like the last 2 buffs that they've been doing to Morgana have been targeted at making her a better jungler and mid laner again. And I feel, as a support player, obviously, like Morgana's identity and role that she's been associated with for the longest time is support. And so it's really surprising to me that the direction that they're taking Morgana in, which is Morgana's a weak support. She was an overpowered jungler for a short period of time because they gave her way too much monster damage modifier. You know, she's just another champion that randomly got shifted to the jungle for fun and to shake up the meta. And it was way too broken because their clear speed was insane. And so then they nerfed it. And then it was never a jungler again. I don't understand how they think now that the identity of the champion is as a jungler and a mid laner and not as a support, and that she needs help as a jungler and a mid laner, not as a support. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I'd like to see them make changes to Morgana that help her be a better support, and her W is the last place that you would go to help Morgana as a support. Her W is supposed to be pretty useless as a support. Obviously, it's important. It's different for jungle or mid, though. It's very well defined. Like for jungle or mid, your W is really important. But for support, it's the least important ability in your kit. So if you're trying to make Morgana a stronger support, you want to be putting power budget into her Q or into her E or into her ult, not into her W. So this is obviously targeted at jungle, and I don't really understand why they think that more people are interested in Morgana in jungle than they are in support, I guess. Nyla, Q secondary monster damage increased. Secondary damage to monsters. Nyla will not become a viable jungler with this change. What? Man, I'm too tired for this. What is Riot cooking up with this patch? What are they talking about? Nyla will not become a viable jungler with this change. I had to like rub my eyes. Am I reading this correctly? What are we even talking about? But the current restriction around how little splash damage she deals to jungle monsters just isn't needed. We're removing this unneeded modification for now, and eventually we may dive into what it would take for Nyla to be functional here. What? I think that Riot's cooked. I gotta be honest. The balance team right now, they need to hire me. They're cooked. I don't understand what they're thinking. Like, I guess what they're thinking is that we can't change the game in any meaningful way whatsoever because playoffs is going on right now for competitive. But what we can do to change up the game for your average player is make a lot of random champions good in jungle. And if we make a lot of random champions good in jungle again, it will feel like the game is different, interesting, and less stale because you're playing against different champions. And then if you're playing against all these different champions that people are not going to bother to learn for competitive or touch, and they're not going to be that good anyways, because these are minor things. Like they said, they don't even think this will make Nyla be able to jungle, even with a little bit of an AP ratio buff on AP Irelia. Nobody's playing AP Irelia in competitive. You know what I mean? Nobody's playing the AP Kog'Maw because of a little bit of AP buff. This is like, people are going to try these things in normal games, maybe in some ranked games here and there. It's going to feel like it's shaking things up a bit, but it's just totally random. And I guess that's the direction that they're going. And I wish Riot would have either planned better, like I said, around when the competitive season was. Why not end the split at a different time so that you can actually make changes to the game when your new split, or season as they're calling it, season 3 dropped, and their changes are to put Nyla, like, think about putting Nyla jungle but not actually make her strong enough to do it, to buff AP Kog'Maw, Irelia, to try to put Morgana back in the jungle but not strong enough to actually put her back there while leaving her useless at support. Like, what else random stuff did they do? Oh yeah, lane Kayn. I mean, it's just so bad. It's like, don't we have anything better to do with the game than this? All I can say is I hope that this meme patch is like, okay, we have this meme patch, right? And it's fine. Hopefully they're spending their time not working on this patch. Like, if the balance team spent all of their time working on this patch, that's really bad. Hopefully they spent a little bit of time working on this patch, figuring out how to do some things to lightly change up the game without interfering with competitive at all during playoffs. And they were actually spending, 60% of their time this last 2 weeks planning for when they can change the game. What are we going to do when, the playoffs is over, Worlds is coming to an end, and we can shake up the game for next season. Hopefully that's what they were spending most of their time on. Right? This is bad. I can't be the only one who's thinking this. This is one of the worst patches I've ever seen, actually. Rumble passive damage decreased. Q damage. I mean, I guess it depends on what you mean, right? It's not one of the worst patches ever. I mean, objectively, if you go back and look, like, obviously, like, a patch where you buff Ardent Sensor or something like that is a worse patch and, like, a worse mistake. I don't really think that this causes any harm to the game. It's just a funny patch, right? It's like, it's a paycheck stealing patch. You know what I mean? You know what I mean. Okay, anyways. So let's see. Rumble, passive damage decreased. Q damage decreased at higher ranks. Overheated damage of 5 to 40, 5 to 40, 25% AP to 25% AP, 5% target max HP to 4% target max HP. So let's see. Rumble climbed greatly in win rate since the consistency changes that we made last patch. So we're moving power out of Flamespitter and Junkyard Titans to, just out of them, out of their damage output. Okay. Yeah, obviously Q is Rumble's most important, ability for laning phase. So if you really want to hit Rumble, you hit him right with the Q. So he's losing 1% target max HP from his passive when he's overheated on his autos. And then his Q Flame Spitter damage over 3 seconds. The base damage is being decreased from 60 to 180 to 60 to 160. So it's going to be like a 5, 10, 15, 20 change. AP ratio is unchanged. And the percentage target max HP is unchanged. This is a reasonable change, right? Like Rumble got a little bit stronger because of the changes that they made to his consistency on the different map sides. And, this is a very minor nerf, but important nonetheless, right? So like, I don't think taking 5, 10, 15, 20 off of his Q is that big of a deal. So I think that this is going to be totally fine for Rumble. It seems like they didn't overreact and over-nerf him, and they didn't leave him too strong, so it seems like this is a totally great, reasonable change. Wonderful. Senna, attack speed growth increased, Q heal increased. Attack speed growth 2 to 2.6%. Underperforming as a bot laner. They keep going back and forth between whether they want her as a bot laner or a support. I guess they're trying to make her work in both, but they keep changing the way that the Soul Collection works over the last year or two, and it keeps going back and forth. Oh, Senna's a really good support. Oh, Senna's really good AD carry. And it's for the players who probably like that champion, it must feel really jarring. It's just pick something and stick with it or something. It's so weird that they keep changing it back and forth. So her attack speed growth is going way up, and her heal is also going up. So they're doing both, which I think is okay if both of them are struggling, right? They don't have to worry about balancing that. So her attack speed growth is going to help both really, but will help AD carry more. And then the heal going up is quite nice for support Senna. It's not going up by an insane amount, but so it's going up, let me see, 15, 20. Oh, this is so weird. Wait, it's going up 15, then 10, then 15, then 20. I've never seen a change like that before, actually, in a really long time. It's just kind of randomly going up by different amounts. Sure, this looks a lot nicer, though. It's because these numbers were actually kind of weird. It jumped up 15, then 15, then 15. Wait, these numbers were fine. Whatever. I don't know. Maybe my math is cooked. Am I doing something wrong here? 5, 10, 15, 20. Oh yeah, my math's just bad. I'm so tired today, my bad. I know this has not been my best patch rundown, but it's been rough. Okay, set E monster damage increased. Bonus monster damage 100 to 125 to 250. Set jungle is a lot closer. Set jungle is a lot closer to viability than people realize, but he still needs a bit of a push to reach true viability. Have fun. My hair is going to get progressively worse throughout the video. It's oh my goodness. Okay, so we got Lane Kane. Let's see if we can keep track of all the changes here for you guys. We got Lane Kane, Set Jungle, Nyla Jungle, Morgana's coming back into the jungle, but not strong enough to actually be good, but they're trying to get Morgana back there. AP Irelia, Set Jungle. Oh my goodness. I'm not even kidding. I went into this, I was looking for singed Q damage, and I was like, you're going to do Q damage to monsters or something like that and bring back singed jungle. Q damage per application decreased. Oh. Duration 2.2 seconds to 2 seconds. Max damage ticks per application down to 8. Yeah, he underwent the same changes basically as Rumble did last patch that made Red Side Singed deal his first tick of damage instantly instead of a quarter of a second late, and made Blue Side Singed refresh his poison much more reliably. Result of this change is that in almost all cases, Singed players are dealing substantially more damage in almost all contexts, so we're making some under the hood changes to poison duration in order to make the average poison trail closer to before, but without the substantial red-blue differences. So they're just bringing him back in line. I think it's funny, though, because wasn't he missing one tick per thing on red side, and now he's permanently losing a tick on both sides? So unless I misunderstand what happened, which I totally could right now, but unless I misunderstand what happened, this plus the duration going down should make him worse than before, no? So that feels kind of bad. Mushrooms and eggs and other objects are now more visible. Trap opacity for his teammates? We're making a small visual change that Teemo's traps easier to pick out in the world. They still turn invisible, so you can tell what it is right before it blows up in your face. Okay, fair enough. I mean, it's a little bit of visual clarity. Obviously, it's whatever. Vayne Q monster damage increased. Vayne jungle is a lot closer to viability than many players realize. Please make this into a meme. They just copy-pasted something jungle is a lot closer to viability than people realize, and then made a bunch of random changes to like 3 different champions. So when I say it's a bad patch, I don't mean that it's like gonna ruin the game or anything like that, but this is like one of the funniest, like dumbest patches I've seen in 15 years. It's actually insane. I have to go watch other people's reaction to this patch now, because this is so insane. They don't know how to, like, I mean, I guess they can't because of competitive, like I said, but like, so it's not that they don't know how to shake the game up. This is just kind of pathetic, no? It's so sad, actually. Vayne jungle is a lot closer to viability than people realize, but many players completely miss the mark on ability orders. Oh, that's it. Vayne jungle's wonderful, but they're maxing the wrong ability. If only they were maxing the right ability on Vayne jungle. If you want to play Vayne jungle, start with silver bolts and then max tumble. Have fun. I might need to take a break for a while, I'm not going to lie. Monster damage 6 to 10% max HP, capped at 200. Now the cap is 140 to 200 damage regardless of health. I need to reread this because it sounds... 10% max... 40 to 200 damage regardless of health. I must be reading this wrong, because obviously they're trying to buff Vayne jungle, but if it was capped at 200, and I've read this like 3 times now, I know I'm tired today, but if we went from 140, if it was capped at 200, that means it can do up to 200 damage on the max HP damage, right? It can do up to 200 against monsters. Now it's capped at 140, and then it scales up to 200. So wouldn't this mean you're potentially getting capped out and doing less damage? I don't get it. I think they nerfed Vayne jungle. I'm not gonna lie. There must be something I'm missing, because obviously they're trying to buff Q monster damage increased. Wait, they said Q monster damage increased, but this is W. I swear it's not me, guys. I know I'm having a rough day and I'm tired. I think I don't know what they did this patch. This is a disaster. I mean, really bad. What are they doing? I'm ready for Yunara jungle, to be honest. Okay, Yunara fixed several bugs that could cause her to deal more or less damage with on-hit effects. Okay, bug fixes. Fine. I mean, I guess we should read them. They're probably important if they put them up here instead of in the bug fix section. Fixed a bug where sometimes the bounce could trigger multiple stacks per bounce for some items. It's intended for Yunara to build 1 stack per bounce. Fixed an issue where sometimes items would fail to do damage on Q bounces in situations where a significant number of bonuses were taking place. The poros on the calculators behind the scenes are ready now. Fixed an issue where items like Runanan's were, I said it again, Runanan's, Banana Man's Hurricane. Runan's Hurricane were dealing full on-hit damage when bouncing from the secondary target to the primary target, triggering the full on-hit value multiple times in a single auto. Jeez. Fixed an issue where Runan's Hurricane bolts were having their on-hit damage reduced incorrectly and will now apply the full on-hit damage correctly. And something will happen to her win rate, and who knows? It's anybody's guess. Axiom Arc is just getting 250 gold cheaper for no reason. It's very weak and unpopular. It is actually, yeah. As an AD assassin, a legendary. We'd like to shine it up and make it a viable part of the assassin ecosystem. This is fair. I shouldn't have said for no reason. I'm just having a laugh at the patch, man. It is what it is. Minus 250 cost. That's nice. Horizon Focus continues to be unpopular as an aggressive AP haste stat stick, especially because it's rather weak. We're here to push it into viability by making it easier to sneak into a build and ensure the damage throughput is worthwhile. I have to, right? Like, they wanted to be fancy and use the word throughput instead of output. But damage throughput doesn't make sense in the English language. That would be the amount of material or items passing through a system or process. Oh, okay, we're almost done. Horizon Focus, the damage throughput. Just say damage output. They're making up stuff that doesn't make any sense. Throughput would be like you put some material into a machine and it cranks out some other stuff, right? That's the throughput. Like, that's what throughput is like putting some items into a machine and then they output those items. It's like that. You have the output and you have the throughput. The throughput is the stuff that goes into the machine that outputs the thing that comes out. Doing damage doesn't have anything to do with throughput, right? It's output. They're just trying to be fancy. It's like the people working at Riot, and Riot should hire me, but the people working at Riot are literally like the college kids who are like randomly putting in like words into their essay and they don't have any idea what it means. You know what I mean? Like they're like kids trying to extend their like, hey guys, we've got a big assignment presentation due today. It's patch 15.17. What are we going to do to shake things up this time? Well, you know, we're in the middle of playoffs, so even though we're calling it the start of season 3 and we only make big changes at the start of a season, it's not really a season because what we actually mean is seasons like season 15, 16, 17, etc. So we're not actually going to make any changes to the game whatsoever. But what if we gave Otacon a cool axe? Or like, what if we like buff Vayne jungle and set jungle and lane Kayn and AP Irelia to really shake up the meta, because we know that they're never going to play that in competitive, but maybe it'll change up a few solo queue games and make the game feel a little bit interesting. Well, hey man, I don't want to just say output because that would be like lame and easy for people to understand. So why don't I just like use a word incorrectly to make myself sound smarter or whatever? Like, it's the college graduates, man, that are ruining everything. And I'm a college graduate too, but that's fine. So I know because we've all been here, right? It's like you've got that project due the next day. Patch, 15, 17 is due the next day. It's like 11:59 p.m. You're tired. You forgot what throughput means. You just, you threw it in there. And now I feel like I'm sitting here like a professor grading this, and I'm like, what is happening right now? But it's like, I don't want to see them in my class ever again, so I might as well just pass the patch and end the video so I can move on with my life as a professor, right, instead of worrying about it. It's bad, boys. It's really rough. Okay, ability power. We got 2 items to get through. Surely we can finish it up. Ability power on Horizon Focus is going up by 10. The total cost is actually going down by 50, even though it's getting 10 ability power for free. And the recipe is completely changing from Fiendish Codex, Blasting Wand, and then 250 gold, to Fiendish Codex, Blasting Wand, and 200 gold. So it's just the same 50 gold off. I don't even know why we bothered to write this, actually. Are they serious? Holy moly, it keeps getting worse, man. Okay, Profane Hydra, attack damage 60 to 55. Profane Hydra is weak, so we're reducing its AD by 5. Woohoo! Like, give me a break, man. Okay, but in all seriousness, right? They took 5 AD away, but it's fine because they're reducing the cost by 350. Recipe. Let's not get baited by this one. The recipe's not actually changing. We're just including it for fun. It's actually just that the gold cost is going down from 663 to 313. Okay. Yeah. Arena, ARAM, skins. At least they released 6 skins this patch and they're making their money. They got some cool support skins in here this patch. This Lulu skin looks pretty cool, to be honest. I'm kind of surprised that you don't see more of these, like, you know, classic mage hat, you know, skins. Maybe they worry about it because it'll look too much like Vigar or something like that. But actually, I would worry about it with a champion like this. I mean, because, oh, this is not a, this is like a Joker hat. Never mind. I'm completely cooked. So is Riot. With that being said, good luck in solo queue and have a wonderful patch 15.17.